This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the From the Back Tees podcast, a podcast from the Back Tees. I'm Jerry Luke, and with me, as always, is my compatriot north of the border in America's hat and headquarters for From the Back Tees, the founder, Zach Penta. Zach, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I am all right. Don't nobody worry about me, because 54 down and 162 more to go on this latest job that a lot of the caddies seem to know about that we're on. To catch you folks up, I'm a golf caddy at Bandon Dunes Golf Resort in Bandon, Oregon, United States of America, and I was handed my first 54-hole assignment that begun today, and it was 18 yesterday, late round, and then 54 today, 36 tomorrow, 54 on Friday. And yesterday when I was chatting my golfer up, luckily it's only one bag. I got a cop out. It's only a one bag job. I asked the golfer, I'm like, so why the 54, 36, 36 seems like an odd amount? And he said, oh no, we're doing 54 every day. It's just the pro shop and the computer would not allow us to technically book it. But, and this is public knowledge, everybody, if you play rounds of golf at Bandon Dunes, your first round, you have to pay full price. Your second round is half off. Your third round, if you choose to play it, is free. So they're not about to make a tee time, and we just have to suffer. And like I said, I'd be totally proud at how tired I am at my accomplishment, but it's like I've never ran a marathon in my life before, but I'm about to run 4 in a row, so why am I going to brag about the one?
Yes, it's this one guy playing 3 rounds?
Evidently, these cats, it's him and a couple other fellas, they're from the west coast of America. My guy's a bankruptcy attorney, nice enough fella. We chat about, it's a pretty dark industry, so I hate to say it because I have a lot of negative opinions on some of those jobs or whatever, but it's like guys who work for big banks, fiscal guys, stuff like that. I actually really enjoy caddying for them because I know the nuances of their business a bit, to the point where it's just like I can chat with them about their job so they don't sound like what DiCaprio said or whatever in Wolf of Wall Street, or what was it? Gosling said in The Big Short, where he's just like, sounds boring, right? That's why you pay somebody else to do it. That's what we all do, and you don't talk to us. It's just like, oh no, I like talking to those guys.
You're the guy who talks to them.
Well, I like pretending that I'm their fan, just because who doesn't like having Merrill Lynch friends? I mean,
that's true.
But anyways, needless to say, these guys, I guess they've been doing this for about 10 to 15 years. And they were, I wouldn't say belligerent, but there was a lot. Well, yeah, no, definitely belligerent. There was a lot of alcohol intaking, and it was just it's gonna be a fun week. That's why we're doing this in haste right now. It's Tuesday. Is today Tuesday?
Wednesday for me. We've hit 12/13.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
We're working in different days. What a world!
I put in a 14-hour day, folks, and I wanted to record a podcast for us because this was really probably the best time I could do it, and
that's the grind.
I had to do something pre-U.S. Open, but I mean, it'd behoove us not to. So
that's the hustle you got to put into it.
Well, fair enough. Anything fun or exciting happened to you this week, Zach, or anything in like golf news you want to talk about, or the Irishman running away with the Open there?
Yeah, he crushed it. I thought he was going to break 60 too. He went. What did he go, bogey, and then he eagles to give himself a chance again, and then bogeyed the last?
You know how there's other shows or podcasts or groups out there that joke about like we gave them the podcast bump or whatever, and my joke early on this year was everybody I picked doesn't seem to come to fruition unless I hitch my wagon onto a Matt Kuchar star at the last second every time. But it's funny, there's 3 guys going into the tied for the lead going into the final round. I got all my nuts on Matt Kuchar here, and then we got Tucker, giving me the whole Webb Simpson treatment with his son, and we were sticking to our guns, and we ignore Rory, and whereas like all the Twitter polls I saw, he was like, everyone's saying like, out of these 3, who's going to win the tournament? Everyone said Rory. I ignored it like somebody who didn't believe a cop could stop you. I was just like, no, and just drove straight by, and I mean, I don't even know how Kuchar or Simpson finished, honestly. I had not looked at their final rounds just because once I saw Rory flatten them, I just stopped. I was like, I'm done. I'm not looking.
Yeah, no one had a chance. He just ran away with it.
Well, chance or no chance, I mean, some people still shot over par, some people still shot under par, some people shot neither and they shot even. All I'm saying is our staff had like 2/3 of the horses going into the final round who were tied for the lead, and things got so paltry, we didn't even check to see how those horses finished in the race. We just like ripped up our stubs like, oh my god.
That's why we're keeping up with we can't pick anything right.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm getting off the wall and like starting to make some of the picks like I picked for what was it, for like the U.S. Open and such. So, but yeah, I mean, Rory, who was the best Canadian in the field?
Hadwin.
Who finished? It was Hadwin, and what was his final score?
I think he finished at -12.
Okay.
And he needed a T3 to qualify for the Open, and he missed by like 2 places.
No kidding. That's
Yeah.
great. That's really good. So, sorry, I'm just writing down some extra notes here about our U.S. Open talk coming up, but, gosh, I mean, Rory at 22 under, second place was 15 under, but I mean, this is how I looked at it, folks. I'm sorry, I'm a number cruncher, so when my eyes scroll to the right side on the PGA Tour mobile app, and I just look at, like, total score, and who had like the best and worst rounds, honestly. That's all I really use that app for, is who went low that day and who blew up that day. And then what's the final score overall. Then I'll look at the names, honestly. I look at the numbers and go like, oh my god, somebody shot even par and everyone else shot 65. Who was that idiot? And, oh god, DJ, what happened? I mean...
Yeah, DJ sort of got into it. I think he might have had a top 15 finish after starting off with like a 74 in round 1.
DJ is this close to going into the doghouse where I have Louis Oosthuizen permanently leashed up after. Sorry, yeah, Oosty, whatever. That guy, ever since he destroyed everyone at St. Andrews years ago, and he has that perfect swing that we all love, that is flawless and it's good, and he's got a great demeanor, and he's just Charles Howell III makes a lot of cuts. This guy takes like 3rd or 4th in every freaking major. You can't put money on Louis anymore. DJ is fast wading into those waters of that harbor.
In that he's not going to win a major?
No, I mean, I'm not saying that.
Or that he loses you money?
We're living... Yes.
Yes, now we hit it.
We're living in a day and age, though, honestly, where Jim Furyk only has 1 major championship. That is a fact for a guy who has worked hard and played a ton of great golf, and oh, by the way, is still doing it. I mean, Jim Furyk can't hit it out of his shadow. And I'm not besmirching professional tour players. Believe me, those guys work harder than anyone else, and they're the best at their craft. They're athletes and artistes at what they do. But that being said, Jim Furyk can't carry the ball over 250, I've been told, and this was like old news to me. I mean, that's just... Sorry, I got insider dirt. That's why Zach liked me at first. That's all.
Exactly. So I guess starting with the U.S. Open, though, I have one comment. I don't know, what's your whole perspective on Brooks Koepka? Do you like him, hate him, neutral to him?
I would definitely have to say I'm not going to be one of those guys who says I like the band before they got popular. I've always been kind of a Koepka follower for several years, probably hearkening back to... I moved back to San Diego in 2014, so the first Farmers I started going to on the reg was 2015, and I remember distinctly Brooks Koepka and Jonas
Blixt, yeah.
Jonas Blixt, and oh god, it might have been Patrick. No, it was somebody else. It was somebody with a goofy name or whatever. But I remember Brooks Koepka name stood out, and I was just kind of like, huh, who was that? And I mean, it was just the first I noticed him. But Kokrak, that was the other one.
Kokrak. Wow.
I remember like those 3 names were right there in the crossing that we were standing at, having a good time, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, who are all these names? Like, where like I don't understand how to like.
And now 2 of the 3 of them show up.
Well, yeah. Well, but that all being said, we all know Brooks Koepka has got an incredible work ethic, in that like he's gone through like all those other tours. I'm not going to start to name them because my lack of knowledge is very evident. But like he even said, like he had to go like cut his teeth overseas in the Middle East, golfing a lot in the Middle East where we didn't know there was really that much golf, save for like Abu Dhabi where they just like throw checks up and make it rain. But Brooks Koepka. the things that he's been saying lately that everyone's getting on board with, and this is going to lead to answering your question. I apologize to do it in a roundabout fashion. Everyone's starting to fall in love with the guy because they're starting to realize it's like whether his big swinging dick walks into the room first before he does, or he lets his play do the talking or whatever. And I'm not the first to say this. I heard this probably 6 months. I heard this before he won the last two majors that he won, okay? And essentially, it was one of those things where we were wanting Brooks to sound off and have an opinion finally. And we thought, like, who's more allowed to have an opinion right now than Brooks Koepka? And now he's starting to talk. And some people don't like it because not everyone's going to like everything. But part of me is also like, well, A, I love the stuff he says because he essentially says, just like, shut up and play better. I mean, that's just kind of...
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
I really appreciate that. That's hard to embrace or hard to work with, but I can really appreciate that because, like, well, let's just say this is basketball or hockey or rugby or something like a serious physical sport. It's like, would you say the same thing? Like when what's her name? When Dottie Pepper was quoting somebody else, but we were listening to the it was from the Tucker interview with what's his name, Keith
Herschel.
Herschel, yeah, that's right. When he said talking about the choking freaking dog story, and I remember thinking to myself, it's like she did, as was reported accurately, she didn't backtrack. She's like, oops, they caught me on air. But at the same time, she's like, yeah, well, I apologize for saying that, but we could be playing better or whatever. And like the coach of the team came up to her and said, hey, our girls are really hurt by that. Why'd you say that? It's like, stop choking. What do you want me to do? It's like this isn't even the Johnny Miller treatment here. It's just like, hey, how about you stop sucking? And he brings to point a lot of things that are just like about golf is life, golf is perspective. Perspective is everything. Where everyone's standing from different elevations, literally and metaphorically in life, really can suss out how you digest something, whether it's visually or mentally or verbally or socially or anything. And all that being said, Brooks said a few things in that press conference recently that I thought, oh, he didn't enlighten me to anything. I just never heard those words together, and that was really, really cool. Like where he said, like, oh, you're complaining about the greens or the rough or whatever. How would you hit it closer? I'm just kind of like, anybody could have said that in the '60s. I mean, that's not new shit, really. But I love him for it because, like I said, and that's why the first thing I said about him, it's like his dick enters the room 5 minutes before he does, and now he's got the hardware to back it up. It's like, I think he might be like DJ, but just maybe a little younger, a little more vocal.
Yeah, and I love the fact...
He has a lot more majors.
Yeah, I love the fact that he tells these guys in his group, he informed his group, he doesn't want them complaining to him. He just wants them to leave him alone. And he made a good point.
Who's going to tell Brooks Koepka to fuck off? That guy will put you in an arm bar. Like, he'll put you in a cobra clutch, and that's the sleeper hold where he takes your own arm and puts you to sleep. Where it, like, gets around you, like, he grabs your arm and puts you like that. I mean...
Yeah, he's like the Kawhi Leonard of golf now. He doesn't complain about anything. He just plays.
Dude, listen.
Just play and win.
For as much as I defend the Warriors, and I only do that because Tucker likes to suck off the dicks of anybody who doesn't root for the Warriors, I gotta admit, I need to see the end of this series before I really cast my opinion about how far Toronto got and what they're doing, because I'm still kind of not in shock or awe or anything like that. I'm very impressed. I actually really, when I was driving home from work today, I was taking stock and thinking what the Raptors have done this year, and I am really, really impressed. I need to see how they finish up before I say anything else about the NBA Finals, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's
so
pretty.
Besides Kawhi Leonard, I must give, since I'm Canadian, I'll give my take. I'm not a Raptors fan, but I liked them because of Kawhi. That's why I really wish the Bucks had made it, so people don't assume I'm just rooting for the Raptors because I'm Canadian. Also, the fact that they cheered Durant's injury really pissed me off.
Now, hold on. I can defend that. I've seen enough footage and heard enough about that. We'll get back to the U.S. Open here in a second, but I can totally defend the Toronto fans and that they're not going to become that town where it's just like, oh, no, Toronto fans, they cheer people when they get hurt. No. If you listen to Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption, they both have podcasts. They're each 20 minutes apiece. It's just exactly what they post on ESPN every day. They explain it succinctly that the crowd, once they realized how that it was a serious injury, they stopped cheering and being like kind of shitty or whatever. And their initial reaction, because they're fans who probably had a few drinks and, like, you know, they're not professional evaluators or whatever, had like a 10-second hiccup where when they saw him go down, they all just cheered because they're like, oh my God, this is what we needed to win the NBA championship. Hooray. It's not because like somebody went down because they're hurt. That rarely happens, and those fandoms stand out. And I'm glad that those reporters broke it down that way, because I didn't really see too much of it, so I didn't really know too much about it. And given what they said and how they expressed it to me, I don't think it's going to be a bad thing for Toronto, as like some people could say. I mean, because I remember Barstool Sports reposted that thing where like that crowd at the bar reacting to in Toronto to Kevin Durant's injury. Okay, I get that. I've seen a bar scene like that reacting to several different zany things that, might not have been injury related, but weren't involved with that room's team winning that game, and everyone was going berserk, okay? People are allowed to be human. We're allowed to feel for a second, oh, hell yeah, and then feel for a second, oh, no, somebody got hurt, his career could be over. You know, I mean, that's a very visceral roller coaster back and forth. And that's fine. We're allowed to be freaking human, and that's just... It's not that big a deal.
I hope they weren't cheering for them. I mean, it's hard to tell. I'm sure there were some cheering, and like you said, some didn't realize.
Look, there's rotten apples in every tree, in every state, in every province.
And Drake pisses me off.
Dude. What's that?
And Drake pisses me off.
Yikes.
Just sit in a normal seat, dude. We don't need it.
We don't. All right, so how's about we talk about the U.S. Open?
Okay, back to golf.
Yeah, so... we got Pebble Beach, iconic Pebble Beach golf links, where, funny, with this guy I've been caddying for today, I noticed on his 4 Hybrid, he's got this, like, really old Pebble Beach sock that has, like, a leather Pebble Beach medallion stitched on it or whatever, and it kind of kept falling off a little bit, but I kept my hand on it so I'd make sure it wasn't coming off, and then finally, in the middle of the second round today, on hole 30 of 54 or whatever, he said, he's like, oh, hey, by the way, keep an eye on that head cover. My dad gave that to me or whatever. And he was kind of a dry guy, so I was just kind of like, or he said his grandfather gave it to him. He's kind of a dry guy, so I'm just kind of like, oh, I know, I've been keeping my eye on it for you there, boss. You know, I've been making sure my hand's on it. You know, it's kind of slippery, looks old, whatever. And he just looked at me deadpan and said, yeah, he bought it back in the 70s when it only cost $75. I almost fainted because, I mean, Pebble is so great at gouging people. And he was not telling a joke. He was being serious. He's like, no. That generic blue-ass head cover with that little piece of leather stitched onto it was $75 back in 1970.
I don't know how much that is now, but too much for a head cover.
I apologize. I'm sorry. Folks, I even though I mention all the time that we are an international show, brought to you by
Big Heads Podcast Network.
Big Heads Podcast Network. That's right. It's not Michigan Sports Entertainment, but I've been hearing the bumpers that they've been doing for us, and I really, really appreciate it. Those guys kick a ton of ass, and I can't be happier that we're just part of a team or part of a crew or whatever. And I need to do better to reciprocate and pay attention to those guys as best I can. Yeah. Anyways, crikey, tangent on tangent there.
You were on exchanges, currency exchange.
Yeah, the fact that we're international. I mean, Zach and I are good enough at like dealing with our time differences, no less that like he likes to talk still in yardages and not metric.
But, yes.
But that being said, like when it comes to fiscal stuff, it's very easy for me as an American because I mean, at least I can speak for the United States. We worship the almighty dollar. We do. It's a dang nasty fact.
We worship your dollar too.
Gross, but I get it. It's one of those necessary evils that mankind has created, and now we have to perpetuate to stick around. But that's another podcast for another show, folks. I oftentimes tend to throw out dollar values, and I know we don't always have American listeners, and I apologize because I know my conversion rates or my perspective is sometimes askew. So when I just say this or throw this out there, I mean, I never, even though I'm pretty good with my pesos and my yen, I never really got the pound down, so to speak. I mean,
I always thought the pound was around double.
Yeah, but it doesn't always fluctuate. Everything fluctuates.
Yeah, it fluctuates.
And I don't mean, sorry, folks, if anyone's listening and you're like punching your dashboard right now or your iPhone or whatever, saying,
smashing your head in.
This is why you deleted Barstool Sports, Jerry's, because you laymen sound like laymen. There's a lot of things I don't know about, and there's a ton of things we do know about. Hopefully we can ruminate on the things that we do know about and those things that we don't. I'm not going to sound like Frankie Borelli or whoever that idiot was on Barstool Sports saying, no, wait a minute, if the temple of my head is so sensitive and it's right here and I didn't know what it was called and I didn't know it existed, how come we're not walking around with helmets? I mean, that man makes 6 figures a year, I think, doing nothing.
Or you could laugh at the nonsense we say. The incorrect exchanges.
Hopefully.
Or you could bet against our picks, and you'd be really rich.
That is what I've been saying all along, and we haven't even been doing this podcast all that long. I mean, just back when I started making like real picks, like when I switched from like fantasy football to fantasy baseball to real betting on golf in 2014, I have not picked, ever since I picked Billy Ho to win the 2014 Masters, I have not gotten dick right.
We all unanimously ranked Brooks Koepka number 1. He might never win again.
I doubt that.
That was a terrible omen that we did.
Wager or something on that? What do you mean? Win another major? You don't think? What do you think? Okay.
He might never win anything after we all ranked him 1.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, see, you got me a little itchy there. I was gonna say like, oh, so what do you want to give some odds here on like, what do you think Brooks Koepka's never gonna win another major again? What if he pulls a Spieth? Or
never win a major? Probably like 5-1. No,
what?
No, probably like 3-1.
Nope, everyone heard that first. Nope, 3-1.
Yeah, I'll give you 3-1. I'll take 3-1 on him never winning one.
Well, of course you'll take 3-1, but you said 5 first.
Well, that's even worse. That's even better for me. But now I'll give you 3 because I'm generous.
Is it? No, wait a minute. Are you sure?
Yeah, I have the 3 side.
I'm just messing with you. I'm trying to get you back on your heels. So,
we need a board.
I will get us a board. So, you asked me about Brooks Koepka. Was that leading to anything in particular? Well, it
was more that I was going to say he made the good point on that. Regardless of how hard the course is, everyone has to play the same thing. And that's why I love Pebble, or I love the U.S. Opens in general, how they play tough. Because you get some really brutal conditions, and you get to see these guys struggle, and almost struggle as badly as I do.
That is fair is fair. I used to be a member of that camp for many years where, and John Daly, amongst a lot of other pro golfers, would take their turns jabbing the USGA, always saying like, this is unfair, bad, or whatever, stuff like that. And I've never ever been one of those guys who, when you see a golfer do something that like sucks or whatever, I'd be like, oh, hey, look, he's human too. That's what we do or whatever. We don't say that for NASCAR. Hey, sorry, Mom. Here comes another NASCAR joke. By the way, she's like 9 podcasts behind, and she keeps texting me saying like, I'm tired of the NASCAR jokes or whatever. I'm like,
left turn.
Oh, we have to talk NASCAR. Careful, she hates that. But that's like saying like, oh God, now I just lost my grip. That's like saying we're watching NASCAR and all of a sudden you see him wreck and you go like, oh, ha, 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 that's what I do. That's what I do. It doesn't work that way. What I like about the U.S. Open is it out of any tournament, more so than any other, and majors do this all across the globe, and tougher venues try to do it all the time too. The U.S. Open narrows the fairways the most. They crop the greens down the most. They grow the rough up the most. Even though they have a semi-rota of kind of like courses flowing through there, none of the courses are easy. If they're easy, it's because there was a weather anomaly or like some type of draw where like people just like spanked the course in the butt or something. And we will talk about it probably a couple more times in this podcast, but like going back to the 2000 U.S. Open, I mean, that's an outlier where Tiger Woods, yeah, he shot 12 under. 2 guys tied for second place at +3 in Ernie Els and Miguel Angel Jimenez. And to be fair, Miguel Angel Jimenez, one of my favorite human beings of all time, that was kind of the first time this young golf podcaster ever heard of or saw this guy, was June 2000. That being said, I have never heard of, and I hope I've said this before on the podcast, but if not, here it comes. I never heard of Angel Freaky Cabrera ever in my life. Yet he was from Argentina. He showed up at all the majors, made the cuts, and then shot 80, 82 every weekend, and somehow was ranked 9th in the world all year, even though he sucked at every major. And then he goes and wins 2. Finally, thank God. Not one. Anyone can win one. I'm not just saying anybody off the street. I'm just saying Orville Moody, former drill take 2. Orville Moody, 1969, former drill instructor of the Army. He won the 1969 U.S. Open. Didn't really win much else in his career.
Mike Weir. Shout out Mike Weir.
Mike Weir, there's another one. I mean, and the U.S. Open to me produces. First of all, it's got the best trophy. I'm sorry, Claret Jug. Claret Jug, you are.
It doesn't have a good name though.
It doesn't need a name.
Every trophy needs a name.
You're right, but don't derail me. That's a good point. Maybe, you know what, we'll put it up to the fans. Maybe we'll come up with a name for the U.S. Open trophy, and
we'll just single-handedly rename it.
At USGA, #USGA, get on that shit.
The Peter Kessler Cup.
Ooh, the PK Cup. I like that. The U.S. Open trophy is exactly, the Wanamaker is too big, PGA Championship. The Claret Jug is beautiful. It's perfect. But then you got the U.S. Open one, it's just a little bit bigger. You know, it looks kind of cool in its own regards. That cup, it's got everything. It's produced some of the weirdest champions where there's only... Okay, so there are 2 4-time U.S. Open champions, Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. There is multiple 2-time U.S. Open champions, obviously several 1-time. Amongst the 2-time U.S. Open champions, one that likes to stand out to me is Curtis Strange, winner of the 89 and 90 U.S. Opens, and no other major, but back-to-back U.S. Opens. Ooh, that guy. I don't like Curtis Strange, but because of that alone, anytime he gets on the microphone and says something, I listen. Because that guy, that's gravitas. Also, Hale Irwin. Heard of that guy?
Yeah. Is it Hale or how? It's Hale, eh?
I don't know if that's like, it might be pronounced different in other countries or whatever, and Hale is sure as hell not short or long for anything. But Hale Irwin won the 1974, 1979, and 1991 U.S. Opens. And no other majors. Nobody
you said
won
74 was the first?
Yeah, 74.
17 years
91.
apart.
Wait, what's that?
You said 91 was his last one?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
He won 17 years apart, yeah.
Sorry, it cut out a little bit right there. But in terms of Hale Irwin, also, I think he's like the senior tour money and wins leader still, too. And the senior tour hasn't even been around that long. I mean, he's just a great old guy golfer. He has no other majors but 3 U.S. Opens. I mean, that guy is... To win the U.S. Open, God, you have to be a certain type of bulletproof. I mean, when Martin Keimer won the U.S. Open a few years ago in great fashion at, I think it was Pinehurst, he destroyed everybody so much that I thought, oh my God, Martin Keimer is going to be like, you know, you thought you heard the name Tiger Woods? They got the Terminator over here from Germany. I mean, he just like...
I remember that.
It
was all the talk.
All the talk. I mean, I didn't even know if there was a bandwagon. I started my own. I mean, ooh, he scared me. But the U.S. Open, it's just... And here we're melding it with Pebble Beach. It's... I don't know. I'm not saying it's iconic. I'm not trying to use too many buzzwords, but it is. It's
for sure.
It's the course that I want to play before I die, but I really don't want to. But you have to. I mean, it's just. You know what I'd rather play right now? Cabot. Get me out to Nova Scotia, baby. I want to play some Cabot. Is it Cliffs or Links? There's 2 different ones, or
Cabot. I know Cabot Links, but I guess there's also Cabot Cliffs.
It might be in Cabot Cliffs.
There's also Cabot cheese.
Really?
Is Cabot cheese a Canadian thing? No. What? No, it's not. Cabot cheese is not. Cabot cheese they have in Vermont.
Well, yeah, but Vermont's like on your doorstep.
Yeah, so it's not purely Canadian. Good cheese.
To be fair, there is another great side note to anyone listening, and you'll know this if you go to your grocery stores, Americans, but Wisconsin is the cheese state, or the dairy state in America mostly.
Cheese
but
heads.
Oregon, yeah, exactly, for the Green Bay Packers. But Oregon is right up there in dairy, to the point where I guarantee you, at any grocery store in America, like a major franchise, go look for a brick of cheddar cheese. Medium cheddar cheese, the big orange one, and tell me that it doesn't say Tillamook on it, because that is where the big bricks of orange cheese come from in America. Solamente.
And that is how...
I'm sure Wisconsin has an embargo where it's not allowed to enter the state, but...
And that's how you get from Hale Irwin to brick of orange cheese in 2 minutes.
Exactly. The U.S. Open, it's so tough that it produces weird winners in that regard. I mean, you get these one-offs, you get these crazy long shots or whatever. But then you get guys like Lee Jansen who won 2, and like I remember I said in a tweet somewhere, I forget what the context was, but somebody was talking about like great American golfers or whatever, and they didn't mention Lee Jansen or Curtis Strange. I'm like, both these guys won 2 U.S. Opens a pop, and those are their only majors, and no respect. Ernie Els, who has how many majors? I know for a fact Ernie has 3 majors. I'm sorry, folks. He has he won a British Open in 02 or 03. 02, I think. Might have been 03. I'm sorry. But this is U.S. Open talk. Ernie Els had 2 U.S. Opens in the 90s. I mean, the 90s was, like, pretty chock full of, like stalwart U.S. Open. I mean, like a certain type of golfer won the U.S. Open. Payne Stewart almost won a lot of U.S. Opens and finally won in 99 and died before he could even defend his title in 2000 when Tiger took over.
Don't hate it.
Now, let me ask you, do you have... Because I can name, like, the very first U.S. Open at Pebble Beach was 1972. Jack Nicklaus won it, and he had one of the most beautiful iron shots everyone talks about Ben Hogan's 1 iron, the Miracle at Marion. But I like to think of Jack Nicklaus's 2 iron on the 71st hole of regulation in the 1972 U.S. Open. The wind was whipping that flag back and forth like a metronome with no beat. It was all over the road, and it was 217 yards that hole plays all day. The wind is whipping. He cracks a 1 iron. It takes 1 bounce, hits the stick like 6 inches up the stick, and then stops 2 inches from the cup. Like, it's just like that. Only the bear could like take a javelin and throw it up into the clouds of Zeus and say, "Eat this." I mean, oh my God! And then 1982, 10 years later, Tom Watson is duking it out with Jack Nicklaus. And all of a sudden, on the very same hole, on the very same round, Tom Watson overcooks his iron shot long into the long rough. You remember this?
Do I remember this? This is before my time.
This is before my time, too, but I'm reciting it because, oh, God. So, anyone listening at home, you get what I'm saying. Tom Watson, a local of the area, well, not local of the area. When he went to Stanford, he always snuck on to Pebble Beach, and he joked with himself when he was in college that he'd get on the last 2 holes and say, "You got to play these last 2 holes in 1 under to win." And he said he'd finish them 2 over and said, like, "Well, I got a lot of work to do." So here he is back at 1982, 71st hole of the U.S. Open. Tom Watson has no U.S. Opens, mind you. This is a man who has 8 majors. He will win this U.S. Open, but he has 5 British Opens. I mean, this guy is, a machine gunner. He's great. This is his only U.S. Open. He's in this thick salad bar of rough right behind the green, short-sighted. He gets a sand wedge, and Bruce, his caddy, God rest his soul, from ALS, he said, "Get it close," and Tom said, "Get it close. Hell, I'm going to make it." And Tom, sure enough, I encourage everyone to go to YouTube and look it up because it's one of my favorite little scenes in golf. He just gets up there, he can't even see his shoes in the rough, just chip, pop, rolls on the green, click right in the hole, and he runs around the green, does a fist pump, and he looks back at Bruce and points at him, and you can't see what he says, but he says, "I told you so." And Bruce runs over, slaps him on the back. You can see a cigarette in Bruce's hand because it's great. It's back in the old days. And they're all cheering. Tom Watson wins the U.S. Open in 82. Flash forward to 92. Tom Kite, one of the biggest money winners on tour ever. The U.S. Open comes back to Pebble Beach. Tom Kite wins his only major. His only one. Tom Kite is what Dustin Johnson is now, back in the day. Tom Kite, for a good 12 years, was winning every single tournament that wasn't a major. And then he won one. A very blustery U.S. Open at Pebble Beach in 1992, where I forget what the total score was, but it was a nut-buster of a round where I think his only birdie was like some pitch-in or something. And then we have Tiger, his 2000 U.S. Open.
Tiger.
That we all know. I only mention all this saying, obviously you say that this is before your time, but, do you have any U.S. Open memories? From Pebble Beach specifically.
From Pebble Beach specifically, not really. I slightly remember Tiger's, obviously, dominance in the 2000 U.S. Open. But even then, most of it's like watching YouTube clips. But I'd be lying if I said I had a distinct moment I remember.
Well, what do you remember about the, 2010, 2009? No, 2009 was Beth Page. 2010, they went back to Pebble. and Graham McDowell won or something. I know he
So, yeah,
won.
I can.
I forget the year. I know Graham McDowell won at Pebble, but I remember like the guy being a runner-up was a no-namer. Like it was a very, very like sleepy tournament. And hey, but there's the U.S. Open. There's Graham McDowell's one major win. And guess what? I'm glad Graham McDowell won that major because he hasn't won anything else really.
And he's been playing well recently.
Dude, do you know much about him personally? Like how
No.
much of like an ambassador he is to humankind in the game? Oh, this guy essentially, I don't know, like when he knocked up a girl, like when he found a girlfriend or wife or whatever, but this guy went from being like the Derek Jeter of the PGA and European Tour in terms of being like all-time stickman, where like he would give his number out to 3 or 4 hot chicks that were following him around like every round, like on certain like greens or holes, and he would like meet up with them later that night or whatever. Graham Dowell was not a swinger. He just was like playboy extraordinaire. Leonardo DiCaprio, we're talking, folks. It just was him. That's just what he was. Then next thing I knew, I started seeing a bunch of pictures of him and his a child. So I guess like he had a family or started a family or whatever. But meanwhile, other than this U.S. Open win, Graham McDowell doesn't have that much in terms of like victory or prestige or whatever. But Graham McDowell is he's one of those guys who's like on Arnold Palmer's board or something, or like he's on like a whole bunch of board of trusts or whatever, and like players and stuff or whatever. Graham McDowell is big in like the whole like, I don't want to call it charitable side of things, but it's just like his name pops up a ton.
That's great. Then I'll be rooting for him. He has one win this year, though. His first win in a while. I think he won, like, the Puerto Rico Open.
Ooh, la la. Well, they didn't have electricity down there, so who could report?
Exactly. Do we really know?
That's not fake news. That's just no news. Next.
Yeah, so I feel like we could get to some of our picks for who we like.
Yeah, what do you, before I light up Ron Mintz, because I love him, but he just so happened to tweet something deliciously coincidental as something I wanted to say. Who do you like at the U.S. Open this year? I mean, let me just say this much. Pebble is not a terribly long course. That being said, with how they grow up the U.S. Open and the conditions, other than it not being long, I don't think there's many other factors, so who do you like?
So I'll give 2 picks. My one somewhat long shot at 30-1 is Jason Day, and I think that's like an incredible pick.
First of all, what's your definition of a long shot?
Well, for the majors, I feel like 30-1 is fair. He's not really a long shot, but I just really love him. Okay. So, gotta go with him.
I always, I guess, even though you're right, for majors it's different, but I always, and mostly it was for tour performance, but I always thought 50-1 was my Mendoza line.
Yeah, fair. So in his last 7 events at Pebble, he's come in the top 12 6 times of the last 7.
Ooh, hot stat.
5 of his last 6. 5 of his last 7 have been top 6 finishes. And he has 5 U.S. Open top 10 since 2011, but he's missed the last 2 cuts. I got more stats coming at you. He also, you know who his new caddy is?
Fanny.
Steve Williams.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
That's news. Okay.
And he's had some great successes at Pebble, as we all know, with Adam Scott and, of course, Tiger. So
True.
I feel like Jason Day, although he hasn't been doing too great and his last 2 U.S. Opens haven't been great, I feel like that's a stellar choice.
I got nothing here. You literally, that was some rip shit good statistics that I was unaware of.
You like that research?
No idea Jason Day was, well, I thought I was gonna pimp you out talking about Xander Schauffele being like, well, of his 2 U.S. Open appearances, he has placed top 6 and both. I mean, that's small sample size, whatever. But I mean, I had no idea Jason Day had that type of record at Pebble or Stevie or whatever, but also just in general at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, he's 4-2, 5-11-4 his last 5 finishes at Pebble too.
Okay, now keep talking because I am about to look up Louis Oosthuizen's finishes in the
Okay,
US
so
Open.
I'll give you
I'm
my...
going to use that little munchkin as a litmus test here.
I'll give you my personal favorite to win, although his game definitely doesn't suit the course. He's coming off a dominant victory at my home event. We got to go with Rory.
Oh, man. Wait,
They say it's not a driver's course, and you're only going to be hitting driver 3 or 4 times, allegedly. But I feel like he could still hit it, and if you're getting it 50 yards by these guys in the rough, you got to feel like that's still a pretty big advantage.
Allegedly.
I'm no expert, but I feel like a nice 70 yards from the rough is easier than like 160 from the fairway.
Okay, I'm not impressed with Louis Oosthuizen's numbers in the U.S. Open, so forgive me. I just ditched that sled. So you're telling me you got... God. Okay, so you like Rory.
I like Rory just because he's so good. People are like...
Oh, no. I like Rory, too. That's the thing. I had to pick 3 for my girlfriend's office pool, and I picked my favorite, Adam Scott, because...
Love it.
Personally, when I was crunching the numbers, as people might see on the website, when I punched it in, he came out at 25-1. And then D'Annunzio told me 33-1, whatever, because I found 80-1 at Odd Sharks. He is so all over the map, and I would be, honestly, I think that little baby shark could sneak right in there. The pleated one, he could, I could definitely see him hoisting the No Name Cup.
The No Name Cup.
Come Sunday. Yes, come Sunday. And I mean, yeah, he's been playing sharper golf at the right times. And what you need at this tournament is sharp golf. I mean, that's kind of why I'm kind of fancying Tiger Woods a little bit, because nobody knows what club to hit and where better than Mr. Woods at that course. But I was gonna pick Xander, but Ron Mintz like threw up a Xander flare earlier. I'm like, God, because that guy's the Bulldog fighter pilot. And then I was gonna pick Rory because who's hotter than hot and who's good, and you picked Rory. So I mean, I just got to stay on my raft with me mate, Adam Scott.
I like Adam Scott. I feel like he fits this course well, even though he hasn't had such good finishes here. But it's a bit surprising.
I honestly don't have any idea what his finishes are.
He's missed the cut the last 2 times playing here. 61st and 111.
Well, no wonder his numbers were all over the board, and that's why Zach is the comprehensible and researching one out of the 2 of us.
I also just have a sheet pulled up with previous finishes at the U.S. Open.
Oh, fair enough. I got reams of yellow paper over here.
I got some good random stats for you though of people's finishes.
Spill it.
Some real random names. Last year Siwoo Kim had a nice 4th place finish. That's pretty shocking.
Don't you? I already touched that stove once. Do
you know who finished 2nd 2 years ago? Ches Reavie.
Don't. Oh, okay. Well, we haven't. Have we really looked at him seriously in majors ever?
No, that's fair. Then we have a guy in this tournament at 1,000-1 odds who finished 8th 3 years ago. Rob Oppenheim. Incredible.
You mean the rocket builder?
Yes.
Sorry, folks. It's a World War II joke. I feel like I remember that name from getting research on Rob Oppenheim.
No research. Just the fact that I see he's 1,000-1 and finished 8th here 3 years ago. That is all we know.
That is all.
One question I have for you: do you think Phil has any chance? His last 4 finishes here are 1st, 2nd, 65th, 2nd.
I actually really thought about this today, in terms of like the career slam or how he could finish it, or you know what? It doesn't matter where he could finish it. You know, it's going to be magical no matter what. That being said, now I almost with like a certain dagger, I thought, no, there's no way. Phil, I hate to say it, he's kind of regressing into that 54-hole Ricky Fowler territory we often joked about, where it's like, oh, Ricky Fowler's good for 3 rounds, not 4. Pick one of the 4 that he shoots 73 on or whatever. I hate to say it, Phil's hit that level where unless the course sets up exactly perfectly for him, I just don't. When I see Tiger focusing extra and dialing it up, when I see Xander Schauffele focusing extra and dialing it up, when I see Dustin Johnson just golfing period, because that's the equivalent of what he does, it's all like a certain level of like, you know, the zone. Phil, I love him, but Phil is like almost like a tennis player with like too much emotion, where it's just kind of like he just like plays it by ear. And in order for Phil to win at Pebble, he has to have like a lot. I'm not saying like play good, but he has to have a lot of incredible breaks go his way. And I don't think that at a U.S. Open especially at Pebble, you can have 4 whole rounds of good breaks and good luck. That's why I'm saying, I hate to say it, I could see Phil maybe having, like I said, I could see him being for 3/4 of the time, but I just can't. As much as I would pick Phil for everything, and I do, not this one. No, sorry, folks. Tiger. I would pick Tiger well ahead of Phil. If anyone wants to get a hold of me on Twitter and we can talk about it and wager or whatever, I'll give you odds or whatever. But I say Tiger finishes better than Phil in this major, hands down. And I'm Camp Phil.
Yeah, no, that I agree with you on.
Oh, that's it? Oh, it's just...
No, I agree with you that Tiger's going to do better than Phil. Yeah, we've barely spoken about Tiger. What do you think about him?
I'm still concerned considering his workload and how things went for the PGA and everything. Not to mention, I kind of over-sexied it a little bit for him and Bethpage. I mean, I really did. And then I don't want to say the obvious candidate one, but like when you see Brooks Koepka plus Bethpage equals, oh, hell yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like, oh, of course, who else would win Bethpage? I mean, it's Brooks Koepka, come on. But Tiger, I mean, as was said on PTI earlier, and I heard it, and I was thinking about it, and then Tony Kornheiser said it, and I love that he said it, because he said that Tiger knows where to hit 2-iron and 3-wood and 5-wood and 3-iron and like into tighter spots in the fairway. He's been there and he knows, and this is why he won the Masters. He didn't just take the driver out and try to bomb it. When the chips were down, he put that long iron in his hands and he just let that thunder unleash. Excuse me.
Yeah, he definitely has the advantage there, knowing what to do. I don't know how many times he's played Pebble, but more than enough.
And not to say like everyone says he has good history at Pebble. The 2 times he's ever won at Pebble were in the same year, folks. It was in the year 2000 when he had his first. Everyone remembers the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. It was in January or maybe it was early February of the year 2000, and that was the same year he won, consequently, the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach that year in June. He had that eagle it was on number 15, because 14 is the par 5. Yeah, 15. He was like 100 yards downhill, and he just hit this wedge down the hill, and it was one of his first famous fist pumps or whatever. And that was just, AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am Sunday. He won that tournament. He's only, I don't know how many times he's teed up at Pebble. I'm sorry, folks. I'm a dinosaur. I don't have the information in front of me. I didn't bother to do prep for that. But he's played at Pebble a lot. He's only won twice. Fact.
Same year, you said.
Well, unless I'm forgetting another Pro-Am he won there, that's it. Because what other tournaments play there? The U.S. Open occasionally, and the AT&T every year, and that's it. But that was like right from the 1999 PGA to like the next 365 days, nobody was hotter than Tiger. I mean, ugh. So I like Adam Scott. And Ron Mintz, thank you for mentioning Xander Schauffele. I hate to say it, he's starting to become my whole, like, he's my ace in the hole, where it's just like, if I can't think of somebody to win a major, I will say Xander Schauffele.
As D'Annunzio knows, my pick for every tournament is Luke List. He would just keep failing me.
So, before we wrap this up here, do you got anything else you want to talk about? Was there any Twitter questions?
I have a Canadian fun fact of the week.
Okay, throw it at us. What do you got?
Because it's U.S. Open related. If you get this, I'd be shocked. Do you know who the last Canadian to win the U.S. Open was?
The first name that came to mind, I'm not going to say it out loud because that's stupid, is an Australian.
Well, that would immediately disqualify him from the last Canadian.
All right. Can you at least give me the year?
Nope.
Fudge. I don't know.
No Canadians ever won. Real shame.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I'm sorry. I don't mean good, but that's what stuff.
What is good? It's a good look for you. I was hoping you were gonna guess someone.
Well, I was trying every single name I thought of that was under the sheets. I'm like, no South African, no Australian, no New Zealand, no English, no. There's no like Peter Thompson, no. Just I kept going.
Yeah, no, we've never won one.
Mo Norman, no, nothing. No.
I thought that's who you were gonna guess.
No, I know Mo Norman's resume, baby.
Yeah, exactly. He was the only one.
That guy is he's my man.
He's a
So
treat.
I got a couple questions that I didn't get a chance to address last podcast. We're gonna do it real quick here. That came on Twitter, but I tweeted these guys earlier and telling them that they just barely missed it, but they will be addressed. And this applies to both me and Zach, both from me as a caddy and a golfer, and Zach as a golfer and things he's witnessed on the course. But we got a question here from Jeff. Pardon me if I mispronounce the last name. Babich. It's Babich. On Twitter, he's at JeffB3R. Question: how many or roughly what percentage of golfers repair their own ball marks? Zach, what can you tell me about that?
I feel like I actually repair my ball marks a lot just because I like to feel like a professional golfer, so it makes me feel cool. But I'd say very low amount. I'd go with 20%.
Really?
That's what I'm going with, final answer. But you would know. Let's preface this with you would probably be the accurate.
Well, I only know, well, obviously I know where I work, but I also know, like, at my private club, I joined the Elks, and we have, in the state of Oregon, we actually have a golf course, so the Elks actually have a state tournament there or whatever, so we have our Thursday night men's league every night, but when I play with those guys, I mean, it's just, I definitely see both sides in terms of the chasm of elite golf or expensive golf, and then just like a lot of the guys I play with, they still are wearing their Carhartts and they're still suspenders as they get out of their log trucks and they get in their golf cart and teed up for men's league. Like, those are a lot of the guys I play with here out in Oregon at my men's club. But all that being said, I mean, I don't think I had a good answer for this. I actually tweeted a guy. Let's yeah, there it is. I just screenshot it, so I made sure I looked at the answer. In short, what I really notice is at Bandon Dunes, where I work at the golf resort, when it gets really windy and you're not a very good golfer, it's hard to repair ball marks when you don't hit greens. That's kind of the shitty, smug, short answer to say. Is it's just like, oh, well, it all depends on the ability of the golfer. Like, how many ball marks do you repair when... And I think it's just like a coming-of-age thing where it's just like you said, you like to repair your ball mark if you make one. A lot of people might not be used to making one, so they're not used to that part of the etiquette or whatever. I've always been taught, and folks, take this with you. If there's ever a piece of golf cliche or ism that you can take with you, take this with you. One tip I learned when I was actually training as a caddy back in 1999 at Bandon Dunes, when the training was a lot different. The caddy master said, do your best to repair your golfer's ball mark and at least one other that you see. That keeps the green going. That being said, I always repair my ball mark. I mean, I don't know too many people who don't. I mean, and especially out at our resort on those greens, unless it's like really early in the morning or really late at night with the shadows, it's tough to see the ball marks. If the greens are really firm, it's tough to make a ball mark. I mean, and I'm sorry, Jeff asked the question, I guess, so I have to put a percentage on it. Percentage of golfers who repair their ball marks, and I'm going to include caddies of golfers because my golfer this week, he's not repairing his ball marks. I'm repairing his because he's busy putting and he doesn't ask for reads from me. So he's up there putting, so I just like find his ball mark and fix it and I just move along.
I like that guy. He doesn't ask for reads. That's my guy.
He asked for a couple, and they've been pressure cookers, but I've gotten them correct. And he's an attorney, so I know he's very discerning and semantic. But I would say, honestly, Jeff, in my utmost observation, I would say 90% or more of golfers I see repair their ball marks. Which is weird because, like, today when we go on the course for our third round today, and it was very, very, like, starting to get shady out there, you saw a lot more ball marks. I mean, there's a lot of places where you might have been looking for your ball mark and you can't find it, and all of a sudden when the sun hits it a different way, yeah, you see it. Or you see all the other fat asses who've been dragging their feet across the green and making craters and trenches. So that happens too. So thank you, Jeff. That was a great question. The next question that I have can apply to all of us, and I think it applies very specifically. And I'm sorry if you had to listen to the podcast this long, Ty, or Matt, if you're telling Ty this. These are two Canadian buddies of mine who I caddied for not that long ago here at Bandon Dunes. Shout out. This is Ty Childs, or Childs. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's going to hate the fact that I pronounce it one way or the other.
How's it spelled?
Like Childs.
It's probably Childs.
Like you're a child, but there's plural.
Childs.
Childs. But I said childs just to be an asshole. So
maybe it's childs.
That means I got one of them right, and I got one wrong on purpose. But you can find him at TourneyBoss on Twitter. And his Twitter... Oh, and by the way, they have a very, very delightful podcast. Let me bring up the podcast network where you can find it on fantasy baseball. Very, very good stuff. It's called Dingers, but you can find it at the Sport Travel Radio. Is the name of the... God, I haven't listened to so many podcasts so long. I've been so busy. Like, I don't know. I'm looking at my phone going, like, what are these buttons for? But Ty does a sport fantasy baseball podcast that is unlike any other. And to be fair, in terms of the very first podcast I ever listened to, ever, the first ones 12 years ago were fantasy baseball podcasts. And this is the best one I've ever listened to. And Ty asks, how do you combat someone who only wants to hit driver asking for a friend? Zach, do you have this problem where, do you have a love-hate affair with your driver?
Very much so. So this is where my friend Mark will enjoy this segment. This is where I would teach him my signature 7-7-7 strategy. It's where you take out a 7-iron, you hit it, then you go to your ball with the 7-iron, you hit the 7-iron again, and then you go for one more 7-iron. Works every time.
I like that. That's as they'd say in NASA, airtight math.
Yeah. Sometimes you'd like this. Sometimes I like to go backwards. Like, say it's a par 4 and I know I can get there with like a 5-iron and then an 8-iron. I'll go 8-iron, 5-iron.
Now you're just being Mo Norman. You're just gloating there. Okay.
Because I know I can get the first in the fairway. That's all I need.
All right, you know what? Hey, next time you say this hole's a driver wedge, I'd like to see you hit a wedge, and then stick that driver. Yeah, no, that approach there, buddy. I
might do that too. At least it's in the fairway. I need the fairway's hit percentage up higher.
So I know I'm not a professional golfer. You're not a professional golfer, but we're both social golfers of very different levels. What do you think would be your run of the mill advice for somebody who only wants to hit the driver? Even if it's something as like stop being a moron. What do you got?
I can't even. Dead serious. I get so fed up with my driver, and I really do go 7-iron off the tee. So
okay, fair,
I can't. I need that. I need the answer as much as this guy needs the answer.
Look, okay, Zach. In terms of you can't let your driver not be your friend. You don't have to hit it great. Just realize it's the club that wants to be hit the most. I
know, and I need to hit it.
It's the tennis racket. Okay, you can hit that thing on 3 or 4 different angles, 8 or 9 different ways, and produce upward great ball flight, baby. It's just...
It goes like 60 yards to the right.
The only reason why, shout out to our name, the only reason why I play from the back tees all the time is because I want to hit driver all the time. And Ty, this is a great question that you're asking, because it fits right in my wheelhouse, because I want to hit driver all the time. I love my 3-wood, but I only hit it about once or twice around, and every time I do, I'm kind of shaking. I'm a little shaking, going like, oh, it's my 3-wood, why don't I just pull out the driver? I like it, because when I see the driver... It's like off the top of my head, I'm just thinking about that scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit where Eddie gets that cartoon gun and he opens up that box and all the cartoon bullets are all big and jumping around. It's just that's what I feel like my driver is. It's just sitting there looking at me, come like, hey Jerry, come on, hit me big, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna hit you big. It's just that's just how I approach the driver.
Yeah, no. I feel like this guy's coming from the same place though. It gets very frustrating when you can't hit it down into the fairway, and then you just want to keep hitting it.
Well, there's also no guarantee that he is asking for a friend either. Because his other friend,
he is. Everyone knows. Everyone knows when you say asking for a friend, you're asking for a friend. Come on.
Well, and as I tweeted him earlier, the podcast on Sports Travel Radio is called Dingers, and I told him, tell your friend to keep bringing us the Dingers, because it's a killer podcast. I love listening to it, and I heard I'm going to get a shout out recently for they're doing an episode about best fantasy team names, and one year when I'm a big advocate of if you draft a team, your team should be loosely based off of the name of the first rounder, second round.
Oh, you're one of those.
So be clever. If you can't be clever, pick whatever you want. But one year, I picked one where when you wrote it down, I picked Troy Tulowitzki as my starter. Starter. He was a shortstop, and he was my first rounder. And for some reason, I just heard a song in my head, and then I just wrote it down. I went Tulowitzki, Tulawal.
Oh wow, that is a good one.
You just got to think about it for a second. Tulowitzki, Tulawal.
That's a pretty good one.
I'm clever, I guess. All right. Anything else you want to talk about tonight, Zach?
No, I feel like we're good. We're at almost exactly an hour.
Amen to that. We didn't want to keep it too long, folks. We mostly want to talk U.S. Open. We got our picks in. Zach dropped some killer information. And, Zach, where can they find us? What's the best way to get in touch with us and listen to this?
As usual, you can find us at From the Back Tees on Twitter and at JerryLuLooper1 on Twitter. And then...
No, that's me.
Yeah, I know. Come on. I was giving for both of us. Saving time, efficiency. And then...
We do our best to make sure the podcast gets out on all streaming features for... Who is it? Big Head...
Big Heads Podcast Network.
Big Heads, plural. Big Heads Podcast Network.
And I guess one last thing, because I feel like we never bring it up, that people should subscribe and review our podcast, because it definitely helps us show up and helps other people find it.
Oh, yeah, good call. Even if we're friends all the way out there from, Will Brennan to Captain Kramer and all you guys out there, hopefully you're listening.
Just click that little subscribe button.
And even my friends that I caddied with today, Corey, it's Corey, not Cody, Corey Marino and Jimmy Kelly, that's right, a couple fresher faces out there at the Caddy Shack. We're doing this whole marathon thing. They like podcasts too. There's your name. You have to listen to the whole thing to hear it. Zach, it was good talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, that was great. So we'll catch you guys
We'll,
halfway through next week.
Absolutely. Go U.S. Open.